I'll call the April 2nd, 2018 City Council meeting to order. Call the roll.
John Hawkins.
Here.
Matt McKinney.
Here.
Brian Miller.
Here.
Jim Talbot.
Here.
Logan Welch.
Here.
Call for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the time of the meeting that a citizen may address the council on a matter not on the agenda. Except in cases of emergency, the City Council will not take any action at this meeting, but may ask City staff to research the matter or have the matter placed on the agenda for a future meeting. Anyone have any? Yes? Come on up. Thanks, Connie.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Connie Evans. I live at 1620 Juanita Court in Webster City, Iowa. I've just handed to all the council members a copy of the second opinion survey that we conducted. And I'll read it so that everyone knows what we said. The Webster City Council expressed that the prior opinion survey was not fair because it did not explain the situation in enough detail. Attached is the approved revision of the intersection at Fairmeadow and Superior Street. This includes 1, 2 southbound lanes all through town to this intersection. 2, northbound lane will remain basically unchanged. 3, intersection will be enlarged. 4, median to the north of intersection will be shortened 30 to 40 feet at each end with no other changes to the current medians. The main objective to the total removal of the medians is that they feel is what they feel is a safety issue. It was stated that the city would become liable for any accidents, injuries, and/or death that could be a result of the removal of the safety features, the medians. After reviewing this additional information, please sign, print your name so we can read it, write your address, and indicate your preference, retain or remove these medians. And then at the bottom, we suggest, if at all possible, attend the council meeting at 5:30 p.m. on April 2nd at City Hall. And attached is the proposed plan that was in the City Council packet for the last meeting, showing what Plan C is that's been adopted. Okay, this evening, I address you. We have the results from an additional opinion poll conducted this past week. This second poll only collected signatures for about half the time as the prior one. The first poll resulted in 558 signatures for removal of the medians and only 3 to retain them. This poll resulted in 368 signatures for removal and 2 for retention. These opinion polls have been signed by residents across the entire spectrum. Homeowners, tenants, business owners, laborers, professional people, people on welfare, people who serve on city committees, and former council members. Many are well-educated and highly intelligent. They are upset and disgusted that their opinion was just cast aside with a comment that they didn't know what they were signing. They did know what they were signing, and they want the medians gone. One guy said, "I don't care what they do to that intersection, just so they get rid of the medians." A member of the Sheriff's Department said that if he is called out while at the courthouse, he doesn't even turn on his lights and/or siren until he has passed the median. He said people immediately stop when they see lights and/or hear sirens. When the northbound people stop north of the intersection at Fairmeadow and Superior Street, there is no place for them to go to be out of the way. Their only choices are climb over the curb to the east, drive up on the median to the west, or just stop their vehicle on the traveled portion of the street. And that means the officer cannot get through to the north. And as was mentioned at the last council meeting, and happened again just this past week with the train truck accident on McMurray Avenue, the ambulances can't get through unless they straddle the medians to go to assist those who are injured and or trapped. Another said his friend had met with Mr. Ortiz shortly after he came to town and advised him that there are two major things he could do as city manager to make the people of Webster City happy. Get rid of the medians at the Fairmeadow and Superior Street intersection and turn around the downtown benches. Page 2. Some of the comments that we heard as we were going around handing out these papers were, who has been consulted to back up your safety statements? What did the city's insurance agent say regarding the actual potential for city liability? Seems there is liability with and without the medians. In your consideration to consider removing the medians at a suggested cost of $140,000, did you consider if the removal of the medians would give enough width that the one-year-old sidewalk to the west would not need to be removed? And if so, what would be that savings, perhaps enough to cover the cost of removing the medians? As before, these opinion pages were placed in gas stations, convenience stores, restaurants, auto supply stores, etc., and personally taken to meet people who called and wanted to register their opinion. Remember, you are elected by the residents of Webster City. It is fitting and right that you show respect and concern for the opinion of the residents you represent. The result is still overwhelming, guys. Remove the medians. I respectfully request that you either A, take up this issue during this meeting, or B, put it on the agenda to be voted upon at your April 16 meeting. I speak for the residents of Webster City. We expect your respect and that you listen to us. Thank you.
Okay. I did actually go and meet with one of the people who signed that and said that they were against them because they sent us an email and threw us and told us how disgusting we were and all the rest of it. And after I went and spoke to her and took the map with her and explained to her the way the intersection was to be changed, she said, oh, then I'm for the intersection, for the change. So, and most of the people that I've run into and explained the way we're going to change the intersection, in fact not most, all of the ones that I've actually spoken to have said, oh, if I'd have known that then I would have voted yes. So I could go to every one on the list, I guess, and go and take it to them and ask them personally, righto, what is your main thing about the island? And see, everybody that I spoke to so far, it was purely that when you drive up the left lane, you drive right into the island. And it's not going to be like that anymore. So that's everybody that I spoke to, that was their main concern. And of course, I spoke to a guy who drives an ambulance, and he said the new proposal for the intersection he thinks is fine. He doesn't have a problem with the way it is right now. He drives an ambulance every day. So anyway,
So are we taking action?
No, we're not taking any action at this stage. But we have a public hearing coming up on it in I think the 1st of May. There'll be a public hearing on it.
On what?
When we set for the contract.
We'll be awarding the
When we go to award the
seeking
contract,
bids.
the next meeting we will be setting a public hearing. And then after that, I guess you can come back to it. Otherwise, for 300 people in town, so 300 people should control what happens in this town, is that what you're saying?
How many people elected you?
500 people? Well, I don't know how many people elected me. Don't elect me again if you don't like this. That's fine with me.
We got more signatures.
I'm happy
than
not to be
elected
sitting
council.
here again. I think you should all vote for Connie Evans and she should be up here. That's my opinion.
I got two questions.
Yeah.
Were there any repeats, or did you match those up?
No,
No repeats?
we didn't.
Didn't match them up. I was just curious. Something that's.
Daniel has the originals, you can check with him.
Oh, yeah,
We've got the originals you gave me. Well, you
Something
gave
that's-
us the copy of them.
Something that's bothered me from the beginning is at no point, and I speak for myself, and I'm sure for the rest of them, are we being disrespectful at all. I think
Excuse
all
me,
of us.
now hang on. Now, just before we do any more, I would like to say that if you have anything to say, you have to come up to the podium. Now, I got accused also that I was disrespectful to you for not allowing you to speak from your seat. Okay? Now, this is a meeting, you know the rules, please don't do that. Okay? Otherwise, I will ask you to leave. Okay.
I just want to say, I think all of us council members, we all have our groups of people that we go talk to, and we've all went to those people in these situations. And if I did run into people that weren't in favor of keeping the medians, after explaining it to them and educating them on that, they agreed. I ran into some, and this was a younger kid, and I said, "Did you see the petition?" He said, "Yeah, I don't know what it said, I just signed it because I want to remove the medians." And I'm not saying everybody did that, but people did do that. I would have done that in my 20s. I would have went, "I don't want those medians, I'll just remove it. I'm getting a soda, I don't have time to read this page," you know? Some people just don't care to dig into those details. But the people that needed to know that knowledge and wanted to and took the time, overwhelmingly we're seeing that they're in favor of what we're doing, keeping the medians and changing the intersection.
I think we're losing sight of what we were just presented though was a petition of people voicing their opinion, and we're trying to punch holes in it again. We should just accept that.
If we have accepted it, that's fine.
So we shouldn't have to punch holes in it. We should accept that 300 and some more people just signed saying they want to remove them.
Except that I did go and visit one of the people who signed this, and she said, "Oh," and she was she sent emails and everything to all of us, so she was very adamant about stuff. She said she signed the thing, signed the last one. We should have had more respect. And after I spoke to her, she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, man, I did what I did, and I would have voted yes if I'd have known that." So there is a very good concern that what we're passing to the people via this poll isn't working.
And Mayor, thank you for visiting with that citizen, and I'm sure that helped clear that up. And maybe we should at least take some ownership then, that maybe we're not doing a good enough job relaying what our proposed plan was. And then also, just because we're getting opposition doesn't mean that's negative, doesn't mean that we should feel challenged by that. There's still a lot of issues with the proposed plan as it passed. There's no changing the intersection on the south, or excuse me, the south side going north. There's still a narrow lane entering the town. So there's other options there we could possibly explore that we didn't, because I think we're so wrapped around the petition last time, and the medians, we didn't address possibly widening the lane or other options there. So I just want us all to just accept that there's opposition to our plan, the consensus of council's plan. We don't necessarily need to feel challenged by that.
Well, we're not. But do you need a vote right now as to whether we should look at this again at the next meeting? Is that what you would like?
I mean, that's what we're being asked. A group of citizens have asked us to revisit this.
Yeah. So did you members wish to change your vote to have
Well, I have
voted already?
a couple comments, if I may. I had talked to several different people, and it's kind of the absolute black and white. Do you want the medians there, or do you want them out? And it's not, how they're going to be redesigned or reconfigured. It's just, most people want them out because umpteen years ago, when Webster City, there was no medians there. Now we have medians, and there's issues with that. Last week there was a tractor trailer train incident on the east side of the town, and one of the deputy sheriffs had to, they had their sirens on. They had to go up over the median to get around. There was a rig stopped in the northbound. There's only one way to go, so he went over the other side and went around it. So I mean, there is issues that are confronted on that.
You are capable of doing that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. There's issues that need to come up, but the saying is, I mean, whether we have people that express a lot of opinions, you can tell it's a very testy issue within the community.
Well, if you class 500 people as the community,
but see,
we talk about the community.
But now we're quantifying a petition So are we setting a precedent that we're not gonna pay any attention to a petition that is at least half the population of the voting members of Webster City?
Well, we did, we took a vote on the way it was last week, like.
Okay, no, fair enough,
The
but I
last
just
meeting.
don't want us to set a precedent of disrespecting petitions. We have a petition in front of us to readdress it, that's all. We don't have to punch holes in who signed that or who did not. We just have to act or not act, that's all I'm asking.
And did we act?
We have
Did we not give you an opinion of what we thought about it? You don't think we did?
All I'm saying is, we've been asked to reevaluate it. It's up to us if we're going to do that. We don't need to punch holes in petitions. I don't want to discourage that type of fact-finding grassroots effort in Webster City.
Well, I don't discourage the fact that they've done it. I just think that the problem with the way that it gets done is it's a complicated issue.
True.
And it's not an easy one for you to walk into a store when you're there for 5 minutes getting a coffee and go, oh, yeah, I'll agree. Absolutely. If I hadn't been on council today, I would be signing remove, because I would be thinking, just like everyone else does, that it is absolutely stupid the way the thing is right now. So, but then knowing what I know now, what I know about the design of it, then it works. So, is it right? I mean, it's like the lady came in last week and said we need 4 lanes. Absolutely, we need 4 lanes through there. But we don't have $1 million to put at it. So that's the problem. But we should, but having, rather than myself saying that we're going to bring it up when we have the public hearing, which it will, that we can address it next time if they choose to. So, what is the consensus?
I feel that, I guess my mind is that there's still public uproar where how many numbers may be.
But you're one person. There's 5 of us here.
I'm telling you my opinion. Where I am at, and everybody else can weigh in, is I would like to readdress it.
So we'll have a vote. So do you wish to readdress it, or do you wish to?
We can call.
We're never having a consensus on it.
That's why I'm sharing my opinion.
Yeah. So how would you like to?
Well, I want to make a couple comments before I guess we discuss that. I was a little taken aback to be being accused of disrespecting it, because I didn't see it that way either. I agreed that the comment was made that there were possibly people that didn't understand the full picture. But I don't remember the comment being made that no one knew what they were signing, because I don't think that was said. Maybe half the people, you can't quantify who knew and who didn't. So I will say, to being said that you were disrespecting the public, I disagree with that. I appreciate the fact that we had 558 people give their opinion. Even, let's just say every one of those people, minus the one, maybe they did know, but that's just one piece of making this decision in my opinion. It's weighing the cost, it's weighing the safety factor, it's weighing opinion. I mean, we're elected officials to be put in the position to make that decision. And 558 people, if you want to quantify it, is roughly 10% of the adult population. So we don't even have a majority. And that's not to say that that's how you would go about it. I'm just saying that was just a piece of the decision made on my part, to vote to keep the medians. So I guess from my perspective, I don't see that anything's changed. We could always visit taking out the curb and expanding it to give more room for people to pull over. If we want to discuss that further, I'm fine with that, but I don't see the need to rediscuss the medians themselves. I think by far the change will give people what's needed in order for the turning radiuses. Maybe it doesn't address that lane becoming blocked with an ambulance or something like that, but I think from the other pieces of it, I think it's addressed, and I don't think we need to revisit the medians themselves.
Well, I think the thing we look at for human nature, perceptions in the eyes of the receiver and the sender, as far as messages, the old diagram, you send and receive. How did you receive this message? How did you receive that action? So what do you say? I mean, your opinion was, it was not, but I mean, other people felt it was, you know, not respected. So, I mean, those are issues, you know, dealing with individuals as far as that goes. But when we look at the number of people that actually vote for city elections, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, 600 or 700. And so because some people are totally apathetic and never vote for anything, and to be very honest, you know, when you look at percentages of people that vote, so if we're getting people expressing their opinion, I mean, it's the old saying, have I been listened to and have I been heard? So, you know, they've done the petition, we're listening to them, and we have the disagreement. I guess, personally, I mean, I'd like to see it revisited, but then again, I'm just one vote of 5 also.
I ran into some similar situations, like you were saying, Jim, where some people just treated this as a black and white issue. And if I could just treat it like that, the retain or remove, maybe this decision would be easy, but thinking about all the variables, I definitely don't want to revisit it. I'm confident the way we went.
Yeah. Well, like I say, we have a public hearing coming up on it. There'll be a public hearing before we pass the bids that we have. Meanwhile, I will go out, do my best to go out and show the people that still aren't understanding what's going on with it and see if they have a difference of opinion. If they don't, then maybe I'll actually come across some of them that have actually don't agree with what it is, because so far I haven't. So if there's anyone in here tonight who doesn't quite understand and wants to see a bigger picture of it, we do have it in the office in there. And anybody at home who wants to come down and see the bigger map, they can understand it better. We have had some people who said they came into City Hall and saw it and understood it once they saw it in a larger form. So,
Was there a picture of the median revision in the paper? I don't remember.
There was, but the trouble is even the one, well, see, the interesting fact was actually that I had one person who's seen it many times and is on one of the boards, and they didn't have an opinion one way or the other, except that they said that we should put a merge sign on at the bottom of the hill, because the merge sign at the moment's up the top of the hill. And I said, but we don't need a merge sign once the new intersection's done. And he said, hey? So he didn't even understand it himself, even though he'd seen the map many times. So it is confusing people still. So. Anyway, so we're not.
We will not put it on the agenda, but when we have the public hearing, people can come and.
Yeah, as they would have, as they should anyway. So it won't be on the agenda for next.
Thank you for your input.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all the work you went, but it's, I did, but it's,
Thank you.
as I knew all the time, it's what it is. We do have other, and if the person who wanted to know some of the answers to the questions, Connie, that you had there that you put to us about where did we ask the DOT and did we ask other stuff, we do have more information than what's been shared so far, and we keep getting more information. So it actually doesn't go well for removing it, put it that way. So, okay. Anyone have anything else for public information?
I do have one thing I'd like to put out. I'd like to congratulate Jeff Fox. He was selected as the outstanding volunteer fireman for Webster City. His picture is in the paper. And I just happened to see that. You know, it's hard to, you know, recognize people. I'd like to have it recognized, you know, that he was selected by the fire department as the outstanding firefighter for last year, or this year, I guess.
Okay. Anyone else? Is the proclamation now? Yeah. Okay, I have a proclamation which is a National Service Recognition Day, which is tomorrow, April 3rd. Proclamation, whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central of how we meet our challenges, and whereas the nation's cities are increasingly turning to national service and volunteerism as a cost-effective strategy to meet their needs, and whereas AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants address the most pressing challenges facing our communities from educating students for the jobs and for 21st century, to fighting the opioid epidemic, to responding to natural disasters, to supporting veterans and military families. And whereas national service expands economic opportunity for creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, leadership abilities for those who serve. Whereas AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants serve in more than 50,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighbourhood and faith-based organisations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being. And whereas national service participants increase the impact of the organisations they serve, both through their direct service and by managing millions of additional volunteers. And whereas national service represents a unique public-private partnership that invests in community solutions and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayers' dollars. And whereas national service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication and patriotism by making an extensive commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavours. Whereas the Corporation for National and Community Service shares a priority with local leaders nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives and strengthen communities, and is joining with National League of Cities, National Association of Counties, Cities of Service and local leaders across the country for National Service Recognition Day on April 3rd, 2018. Therefore, be it resolved that I, John Hawkins, Mayor of City of Webster City, Iowa, do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2018 a National Service Recognition Day and encourage residents to recognise the positive impact of national service in our community to those who serve and find ways to give back to their communities. Item 1, well, I did item 1. Item 2 is B is minutes and claims. The following items have been deemed to be non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council in a single motion. If a council member or a member in the audience wishes to have an item removed from this list, it will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Item 1 is minutes and claims of March 19th, 2018. Item 2 is a resolution on payroll for period ending March 17 and paid on March 23. And item 3 is a resolution on bills and the funds list. How would you like to?
I move to approve collectively.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Section C is the general agenda. Item 1 on the agenda. It's way past it. 5:35 p.m. Public hearing on 2018 Peach Street Water Main Extension Project. I will open the hearing. Are there any written objections?
Receive no written objections.
Are there any oral objections?
No oral objections.
I will close the hearing. Daniel, do you want to talk about it?
Sure, we've talked about this in past council meetings, but this is essentially the bids and the authorization to move forward with the work to install the water main that would connect Water Street down to Fair Meadow on Beach Street. We've talked about in the past that this would just improve the reliability of the water system really across the entire city, but especially when we're doing maintenance work on the water towers and alleviating any water pressure issues that may arise from working on the system during that period. So you would interconnect the water system it'll be a brand new water main coming from on Beach Street coming down to Fair Meadow and connecting to the new subdivision there. Bids came back. Scroll off the screen. The lowest bidder was GM Contracting Incorporated out of Lake Crystal, Minnesota. Total bid was $199,827.46. There was total 4 bids. The highest bid being Holland Contracting from Forest City, Iowa, for $407,176. So, if you have any specific questions about the project or the bids received, Kenny or I can answer for you.
So are we confident that the bidders were clear? I mean, that's a huge discrepancy, 199 to 407. That they were clear on what the project was and they didn't have any concerns with the low bidder.
Correct. Yeah, it was, and it kind of stood out to me as well. The 2 Iowa companies were the 2 highest bidders, whereas the the 2 out of Iowa communities were the higher bidders.
Question, if I may, okay, the low company, if we award that to them, then partway through the project, I agree with Matt's comment, you know, I mean, that's quite a difference there. So if the company can't get it done for the $199,000, they need more money, then what?
They apply for change orders and we accept them or not.
Yeah, it would probably be, and Ken can kind of give you a little more detail in terms of the process they're going to go through for the construction aspect, but really it'd only come back to the city if there was change orders specific to any deviations or things they encounter during the construction aspect of it, but otherwise.
It wouldn't be like, oh, we're running out of man hours. Yeah, it'd have to be something they uncovered or some, wrench in the works.
Yeah, and it's kind of, and I know it's hard to look at that top figure and look at the bottom figure, but when you look at Plelo Mechanical from Woodward, Iowa, their bid was only at $251 versus the $407. So it's not knowing what the discrepancies were for being a higher bidder than the lowest one there.
And some people, I'm sure, just high bid it. If they win it, they win it. If they don't, they're out of it because they may have a full funnel for this year anyway. So.
And I don't know, but I would imagine with the winter being what it was and some of these Minnesota contractors, they're still dealing with winter weather, and so they may be looking a little bit harder for jobs throughout the year to kind of catch up for what they may possibly be losing this spring.
Call for a motion on the resolution finally approving and confirming plans, specifications and form of contract and estimate of costs for the 2018 Beach Street Water Main Project Extension Project. You want to roll call?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. So I call for a motion on the resolution awarding contract 2018 Beach Street Water Main Extension Project to the low bid of GM Contracting Incorporated of Lake Crystal, Minnesota in the amount of $199,827.46.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 2 on the agenda is a motion on request from Farmers Market Group to close Des Moines Street between 2nd Street and the alley for Farmers Market on Saturdays from 8 a.m. till 12 noon beginning on May 26th of 2018.
You want me to touch on this?
Yeah, you better.
So I won't be voting on this since I'm a vendor and the farmer's market director, but we've been looking for a lot of years for a better location, something more central that will get us the foot traffic, yet allow for an even area so the people we have that have trouble walking won't be in danger. I don't know, maybe a year ago I started talking to Daniel about some locations, and this is what we're proposing. Basically from the alley, you can see the red lines from the alley to the intersection. It looks like a smaller space, but it's actually the same area we covered over at the depot, just side by side. And we'll remove some of the dangers. Over there we're having people drive right next to vendors, which sometimes was not the safest situation. So the goal being, we don't want to move ever again. We just want to be here forever so everybody knows where Farmers Market is in Webster City. It's been 3 places since I've done it, and that's been 4 years maybe. So just trying to get some consistency.
I guess concern I have with that's, unless you go clear over on the east side, that's the main connection from the south side of town to the north side of town. I mean, there'd be other streets that I would have less problem with. I mean, where the vacant lot is, next to Foos, that would be one place. At one time, we used to have them down here outside on City Hall, and we had the parking lot for places like that. So, I mean, my concern is that's Des Moines Street, plus the other thing is that's May 22nd, that's when we got Junk Fest. And They usually have that, I think. I'm not sure what your plans are, I haven't seen them, but I mean, because I know in the past they've been there, so I mean, that'd be kind of infringed upon theirs. And Junk Fest has been approved for, you know, a period of time. I'm not opposed to going somewhere else, but that, I'm not.
We have talked to all the surrounding businesses, they're all okay with it. More than willing to work with Junk Fest, since we're both being approved tonight, to find something that works for us. That's all I got.
Would it be appropriate at this time for
Oh,
Linda?
excuse me, can you come
May
up
I?
the, yeah, just come up the podium, thank you.
Hi, I'm Denise Smith, owner of SOS Vintage, and as a member of our downtown business community, we love Farmers Market. I'm so excited for the opportunity for your shoppers to be downtown near our stores. I'd really like for Linda to have a moment before we decide on both of these plans, because I think they kind of need some cohesive planning at the moment. Linda has a very nice map she's gotten ready for us with all of the Junk Fest layout for vendors, vendor parking, and those kinds of things. If the council would take a moment to entertain her, I would love to hear her proposal.
But I guess the only difference is that his is for how long? It's for so many months, isn't it?
Yeah, we start Memorial Day and we go till it's too cold.
So we could probably approve other than that first day, and then we can discuss for the Junk Fest weekend separately, probably.
Thank you for your consideration in doing so. We do appreciate
At
it.
least we don't have to come back and visit that again. Is that okay with you, Brian? Is that acceptable?
Yeah, I just want to work for a happy medium, so.
Well, that's fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we can come up with a solution for that here tonight. So.
But I mean, again, I'm excited too for Farmers Market to be downtown. I miss it from when it was down here at City Hall and some of that. When I was a kid, our parents did it at First State Bank parking lot. But do we anticipate it like heavy traffic on that alley? That alley just south of that red line? Yeah. So like, do you anticipate on Saturday mornings like people like maybe not being aware, trying to get down to Main Street, and then having to jog along that alley? Do you think that's gonna be an issue? I mean, it's still a fine road; people can travel on it. I anticipate that becoming much more busy due to that blockage. And another question I have is, again, I'm all for the farmers market and their exposure to our community. I just want to make sure it is on the best road, because like Jim touched on, it is a major artery, you know, to our thoroughways and to our downtown. Has there been any other locations you've kicked around down there, Brian?
Specifically, no. We kind of had this idea, loosely we talked about where we used to be, down by City Hall there.
The pavilion, or whatever you call it. Again,
I know the surround, you know, for instance, and just because it's the biggest one around there, Morning Glory's excited that we're, you know, we'll feed off each other. It'll be fantastic for that. I agree, in the beginning it's going to be a learning curve, just like with anything else. It won't be more dangerous than where we were, in the sense that people are pulling into a parking lot where people are mingling in with the crowd. This will block anybody from driving in to the, you know, the actual vendor area.
Okay. No, the only reason I ask is just, you know, I just saw the map. I didn't see any memo attached. We just didn't know if it's, and I don't really know how the farmers market works. If you guys have like a board, or you kind of come with, you know, hey, we kind of want to change locations, see if the city can, like, you kind of represent them in a sense. Is that?
Yeah, and that's why I'm retracting my vote tonight. Is I'm speaking on behalf of them. You know, we have one meeting a year,
Sure.
Which just happened last week. So just to discuss when we want to start, if anybody was opposed to moving down here. And I'll be honest, I didn't envision any negativity towards it.
No, I don't want to come
downtown
out.
businesses, I think, will benefit.
Right, Brian. Please don't take my questions as negativity. I literally just want to make sure we're not thinking this through. You know, shut down Des Moines Street. But I am excited for farmers market to have downtown exposure on Saturday.
I think you got a good point about the alley. I'm wondering if it should be bought so that you can't actually turn into the alley.
Right, because it's kind of a rough
Because
alley.
in case somebody tries to cut through the parking lot there
Right.
for Daily Freeman Journal or something, that becomes a
It's a rough alley. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, and I think it's just going to have a lot more traffic on it being.
pass through. But I guess us as people in town are going to realise that okay, I can't get down that street on a Saturday morning, but
Sure.
eventually.
Would
Especially
be
if
the
we do it
plan
every year,
to
but-
put regular city barricades up? Is that?
That's what we're planning on, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the-
so if you have to move the barricades further south, I don't know that it'd be much of an issue to block off that alley entirely.
I think that might be something we'd have to keep a bit of an eye on as to whether
I guess
how the
I
traffic is
picture-
there.
I guess I picture some people parking in Freeman Journal parking lot, going to Farmers Market and then going to Morning Glory, so.
Well, they said that the parking lot is available, and they shouldn't be getting any deliveries that time of morning, so they should be fine with it.
And that's
So
why we did
I
block
talk
off
to
the
them.
alley, because we're worried that maybe a delivery truck would come in.
Yeah. No, they said
I
they
think if
should be
you
fine.
actually pull Google Maps up, that's the image that comes up, is a delivery truck pulled right in there, so.
Yeah.
Any concern from
Yeah.
police or fire chief related to shutting down Des Moines Street in that area?
Not at this time. I think it was just gonna be, since it's only a matter of a couple hours on the Saturday.
Just because I know people are gonna look at this and go, why don't you go in the green area? Because we have a lot of elderly people come to it, and they just, when we were on the east side of the depot, it was every Saturday was super dangerous.
We have some disabled people.
We need level, solid ground for people.
I do think the location would be great for, like you said, Morning Glory, SOS Vintage, the downtown, anything that's open downtown, the Chicago style or whatever.
That is a busier end of that block.
It's
would
where
help.
most of the sales on Saturday.
What
On
is-
Saturday morning.
Not on Saturday morning?
Nope, not the time they're gonna be there.
Yeah, and I was
There's no,
worried.
really, there's 2 or 3 closed buildings there right now.
Yeah.
But you get over on that side by
Can-
where Avila,
Can you come up to the front? Yeah.
They can't see your pretty face on the camera.
that's great.
They can't hear you very well either, which is.
I think you guys
which
are
is
doing a
big
great
advantage.
job, by the way. I think sitting on the city council is gonna be one of the worst jobs in the world, but anyway, my point was, and I said this to Brian, you know, you go out here along Second Street. Yeah, go back over to Second Street. Yeah, in front of there, right here. Here on Saturday morning, this is pretty much empty. And on the other side, there's 2 or 3 buildings that are empty. So there isn't a lot of traffic before 10:30, 11 o'clock. So, you know, either way, you could park them there along the road or whatever you want to do, because they're still parking on the other side of the street. I don't think anybody's gonna, anybody's gonna get upset about that.
Just while I'm following, you're talking down, shutting down that part?
Well, I guess my point is, you could literally back it up with the cars coming. Is that what you want to do, is have trucks sticking out?
Yeah, but we have to stop traffic, because otherwise people drive, I don't have a good example. Somebody my grandma's age is 87, she rolls up and just wants to work from the window. We can't have people driving up like that.
Okay, so where are they gonna park then?
The vendors?
No,
Oh.
you're talking about customers
Customers,
parking,
yeah.
right?
Right.
The area
That's
you
what
just pointed
you're
out.
saying, they'll park there.
Okay.
I thought you were
park there.
talking about vendors being there.
Well, you could have vendors there, But I guess my point is, there's very little traffic there.
Right.
Believe it or not, there isn't much traffic there on Saturday mornings.
Until we get farmer's market downtown.
Well, I don't know, I thought it should be there forever. I
Right.
think that Avila parking area is just a fabulous spot. We underutilize that in the community, so. Any other questions?
No, thanks, Ron. Okay. Well, we can either wait and vote on this after we hear Linda's, or how would you like to? I haven't got a problem with it going there, and if you think this is the last time we're going to move, it would be probably a good thing for everybody.
We're mainly just talking about the one weekend conflict.
Yeah, we'll have the one conflict that we'll have to.
So basically, their request would just be moved up to the first Saturday in June, right? Because May 26th, just basically a week from there.
Well,
Or unless they can work out whatever.
they can work out something,
Maybe
I
we
would
should
think,
move from Monday first.
Yeah.
to start that day, but obviously they might necessarily be able to have that piece on that day, so.
I'm totally open here for
So how do we do
whatever.
this? Do we table it till after Linda's?
I think we can just vote on it now.
Yeah, I would be okay voting
I
on it
mean-
now if it's just started the first week in June, and during Junk Fest, they just found a different location.
So the reason I don't wanna do that is because as soon as we do that, I have no rights to it that weekend at all. And I wanna make sure we're combining and communicating. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I just wanna make sure we're both discussing it and finding a good solution for us both.
Okay.
Whatever that may be.
Well,
I
let's,
suggest we
then let's,
go into that.
Linda, you come up and do your presentation, please.
Then we can talk about
Yes.
this and then we'll vote on the chamber.
So we'll move the update from the Chamber Executive, Linda Christensen, on Junk Fest to be held on May 25th to 27th.
We don't have fancy technology.
We've got the,
Yeah, great, okay,
Hey, there
good.
you go.
It's a little hard to see, so we actually brought paper copies here. If you wanna see them. This is also a copy of the area in question. Again, thank you for having us and thank you for your past support of Junk Fest. It's a very good event. We believe in Webster City. It's gonna be bring a lot of people to the community. We feel that the event brings tourism to the community and boosts to our economy. And this is actually a very large part of our tourism efforts. A lot of things function around this. Am I going to be loud enough if I step away and kind of point? Okay. Our initial plan, we talked to Daniel. I talked to Daniel right after Junk Fest last year. There's some bugs that we need to work out with it being in the downtown for the very first year. We're very thankful to be able to do it here. One of the things is that when it rained for a couple hours on Saturday, the rain went away. So that was very good, and then we weren't tearing up the park either. So what our proposal was this year, to make sure, last year we had a lot of gaps where picnic tables were filled into spaces. One of our main complaints is from people that were attending and from the vendors is they wanted the venue condensed a little bit. But I said that was going to depend on how many vendors we had, so we were going to work really hard to fill the exact same space that we had last year. So what we did is, okay, can you move this down at all, Daniel? Okay, there it is. All right, so what we started, okay, this, for everybody's reference, this is SOS Vintage and this is Avail Bank Plaza. What we did is we decided to start right here by Avail Bank, or by SOS, and start numbering our spots 1 through 12, I think it was, and go this way, and then again, start here, go here, go here, and make it a logical, only on 2nd Street, make it logical and condensed. Not that we were going to put people on top of each other, but make sure that we didn't have big, huge gaps as we did last year. That will give more of a show, the show that makes it look like there's more vendors, more cohesiveness. The other thing about having it on downtown streets is that this event is now handicap accessible and stroller friendly. So I don't know, we saw a lot of families coming down to this event. One of the other complaints that we got last year is that we had a food vendor here and one a block down and another one there, and and then some down on 2nd Street. And so the committees got together and threw around the concept of having a food court and trying to go after more food vendors. We had our local food vendors, we had Gridiron, we had Hy-Vee, we had, and then Morning Glory, of course. But unfortunately, Morning Glory was down here right in front of their store, and ended up with porta potties and a welder, and it wasn't filled in very well. So we approached the city line, Adam from the city line department and Ryan from the electrician, whoa, can't talk today. In January, and I presented our idea. We're kind of thinking about having a food court. We want to get all these people together. Another concept that we'd love to build on is exactly what Brian was talking about. We'd love to add features to Junk Fest.
someday, you know, we'd love to make this into, we'd love to have a car show. We would love to have a kids zone. We'd love to have, you know, farmers market. We'd love to have Junk Fest be more than just Junk Fest, so that we can bring not only outsiders that come to our community, but bring some of our local people down to give things, you know, people something to do. So what we decided to do this year is tack on this food court. And with meeting with the electrical guys, we did a little bit of a walkabout in January. That was cool. And they kind of suggested to us that we do a wing down Des Moines Street. And so what we did then is we decided we were going to kind of originally start here at this bump out, but we decided to try to make Des Moines Street kind of the center of our show. We don't have a whole lot yet past the movie theater. Okay? We're trying, those are the fill-ins as we get last minute vendors. So far we have as many vendors now, as of right now, as we did at the beginning of the show last year. So I'm very excited about the fact that we're still 57, is that what, do we have a countdown on the chamber window? We're 57 days out and we're still collecting vendors, so I'm very excited about that. Again, like I said, we had the concept was to have a food court down here. And so we have the cotton candy folks here, a food truck 357 here. Of course, this is the alley, which we hoped to block off. Gridiron was going to be here, and of course Morning Glory out in front of their food truck is called Fire and Ice Delights, but it's owned by the Morning Glory folks. Sweet Treats is going to be here. We're going to have a Mediterranean grill food truck in this area. And we were going to have a food truck called Media Wonderland in this area, and then Hy-Vee here. So as you can see, our food court, we only have, I think M is the only one, and then this is Morning Glory's driveway, so we haven't decided whether or not they want this too or whatever. So basically, our food court, as of last week, early last week or the week before Friday, had been plugged completely full. Let's see. Huh? Oh yeah, okay. Because of the food court here, we're gonna have hopefully have, you know, the live music in the Avail Bank Plaza. We were gonna have picnic tables kind of along, as we can, along the green space along Avail Bank Plaza, thinking that the families could get their food and come over here and listen to live music and utilize that in the park here. I'll just keep going with the plan that we had, and then, you know, we can go from there and just make your decisions. The event hours you have in your packets are new. The setup is going to be delayed on Thursday. We're not going to close down the streets as early as last year. It's going to be Thursday mid-afternoon into early evening, and then they'll set up on Friday again till noon. Then the show will start at noon and go to 7 p.m. And then again on Saturday from 9 to 6, and Sunday from 9 to 3. And then we're going to ask vendors, we have a set of rules that we've provided to vendors. They must tear down on Sunday from 3 to 5. And we're asking them to be out of the downtown area by 5 o'clock so we can be cleaned up and everything back to shipshape by 6 p.m. The street closings area, we're asking, we'll work with the street closings, and we're kind of thinking after 2 p.m. on Thursday. And then, like I said, the vendors won't be allowed to go in and set up until after 3 p.m. We feel that that will give our downtown business community that is affected by this area almost an entire day to do business versus last year where they were closed down Thursday morning at like 7 a.m. We feel we had a vendor committee, Denise was on that, and they felt that all the vendors could be set up in the time frame that we allocated to them and not have to disrupt our business community quite as early. Okay, so with that, George, since he is the parking guru for Celebration, has graciously agreed to set up a parking plan for,
Everybody see him? I hold it in
you
my
wanna
hand.
go closer, you guys?
Come on, George.
Last year, the parking was a mess for this thing. Linda asked me to look at it all and come up with a plan for her. And last year, they were putting vendors with their trailers in the south parking lot in the 500 block. It didn't work. It was impossible for other people to pull in there and park. My plan is from Seneca Street to Prospect Street, along the north curb, park trailers, trucks, whatever. The south side of the street will be for customers. This orange area up here, this is also for vendors' trailers. This is over by Pagel's or in that area. Anything blue, that's set up as handicap. All the pink is customers. The purple, that's where vendors will park their vehicles only, not their trailers. That way, if their vehicles are still in a parking lot and they don't have a trailer there with it, it leaves areas for customers. I drove around this entire thing for 2 weeks looking at it. And looking at it last year, and this is what I've come up with. I've tried to make it as safe as possible. I mean, I'm getting thousands of people in and out of Celebration over Fort Dodge in a matter of hours. So I've learned a little bit.
Yeah, that looks like a good plan.
And it's coded. Thank you, George.
It's easy.
Well, just as you're scrolling back and forth, the purple lines here are where we're proposing to shut off the streets. I have met with the police and the fire departments, and you know, about the time I met with them is about the time where that lunatic ran through a bike path and killed a bunch of people. And I said I want to make sure that we're as safe as we possibly can and not allow vehicle traffic through our venue. One of the things that we're doing to make sure that we're safer is we are no longer going to have a gator, one of those big gators. So if you're down here in the middle of Main Street and you buy a dresser, we're going to get a hand cart and we're going to bring it to the end of this driveway or this intersection of Des Moines and 2nd Street and then put it in the gator, and then the gator can go load in your car. We, last year, I was the one driving the gator and I had people stepping out in front of me, little children. It was just, it made me very nervous. So we're going to try to improve the safety that way. We want to block the street. This is 1st Street. We want to block the street all the way from here to here. We want to block the alleys so that we don't get traffic coming through. Because like I said, I'm very concerned about having traffic, vehicular traffic going in pedestrian areas. We'll block, like George said, we will block that, the whole, you know, down by Prospect Street, so that Prospect Street to here to the Legion will be handicap parking, which we didn't really have last year. And we're gonna, you know, make sure that we let people know that we're gonna have an accessible venue. We had proposed a block up there, and then if we, can you go scooch way down? See where we're at. There we go. That's it? Oh,
No,
a little more. Perfect. We had either thought, this is Seneca Street. So if we, this orange area will be the construction. We're assuming this is a construction with First State Bank. So we, like I said, we're trying to fill as many spots going down, and if we don't get all the way down here, then, you know, we want to make sure that nobody bothers their construction area. But if we don't get all the way down, you know, we'll, down here, last year the venue went all the way down and around here. If we don't get that far with our vendors, we'll close here so that we don't have yet another street that's blocked off that people can go through. So anyway, we're only taking up as much space as we have to. We have a vendor on this wing of Wilson Avenue, and we're filling in vendors on this wing of Wilson Avenue as well. So that's where we're at so far on that. You didn't bring parking signage, did you?
I have the show sign, I don't have a parking sign.
Do you wanna
Sure.
talk about, in your packet, we didn't give you the colored map, but I made bullet points of all of the things that George talked about. Also where we are proposing to put the signage, so that we can get, all those vendors to the right place so they can unload their trailers and their trucks. One of the things that we'll do is we'll have our volunteers with a clipboard that says, okay, your vendor, you're in you're in spot number 10 and 11. So we want you to go down the street, down there, come back, and you're gonna be on this side. So we're gonna have a traffic flow that's going right and left so that we're looking at safety and having a good traffic flow so that vendors can unload and that nobody's on top of each other. So George has a whole bunch of a listing of signs that we're gonna need, that we're gonna have, like on the vendor check-in, we'll have a sign or an arrow that points forward, vendor check-in somewhere near the depot. Last year we had people that said, oh my gosh, we found you. We thought you were gonna be at the park. Well, they wanted to come every year, but they didn't hear about the change. They knew it was on Memorial Weekend, but they didn't hear that it had moved downtown. So we wanna make sure that we're pointing people to the downtown when they first get into town. So we're hoping that we can make sure that we get everybody in the right place. So like George said, to avoid a lot of hassle and getting people where they're supposed to be. You want to show them the signage then?
Oh, sure. This is a sign that we've created. The chamber has found that by producing the signs ourselves, we can have a significant savings. So the chamber has purchased the sign blanks, which are a polycarbonate sign blank. You can use these year after year. My husband and I are printing the signs for the chamber with a vinyl cutting machine. That's why the sign says sponsored by SOS Vintage. We're going to do all of the signs for the chamber at no cost. The signs will be double-sided, and we'll also do some directional signs with arrows as you get off of Highway 20, as you come into town from the east or from the west, that point downtown to Junk Fest. We have some vintage signs that were found in the chamber attic that we're going to recycle for parking signs. So those are free to us, no cost, so that's a wonderful thing. But we are just really going to try and make sure that by communicating better like this, everybody has a better idea of where they need to go to do what they need to do. This year, the chamber will also have access to radios for the people at key entrance points for the vendors to help us get the vendors going all the right direction. By keeping the streets open down the center and placing the vendors back on the sides, we have access to emergency vehicles again this year. We're really pleased for that. And we hope by having two-way traffic, it will make vendor loading and unloading a little bit easier.
That's a good point Denise made. I did talk to the police department. I also talked to the fire department, and they're asking us to have a 16-foot fire lane down the center of all of the streets, and that'll include our wings. Last year we had some of our wings blocked, and I couldn't even get a gator through there to take the trash out. So that's one of the improvements that we've made, that we want to make sure that we have, even though we have the street blocked here, we're going to try to assign a volunteer there, that in case the ambulance needs to come in, that there's somebody there to get that out of the way. The other thing that we're going to do safety-wise is, here's the chamber office right here. And right outside the chamber office, we're going to have the information booth. And the hospital, the Indies Medical Center, is going to help us to staff a first aid station within the chamber office. We're hoping that it's not 105 degrees out. But if it is, it'll be an air-conditioned place where people can get in there and have a drink of water, and if they need to be assessed to get further medical services, then they can. Okay, let me see. Communication, we've already been in communication with all the businesses affected in the area, and that's been ongoing since last fall, to make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on and when and who, what, where, when. I attached in your council packets a letter that went out in February. We're going to be putting one out now that we have a little more solid plans. Like I said, we're still trying to fill in spots, but we're a little more solid than what we want. So the other thing that we did this year too is on our vendor, excuse me, that was loud. On our vendor application, we put a set of rules that they had to agree to and sign every point. You can't see them, but there's little boxes that you have to check, yeah. So this is hopefully going to help us to make that flow go better for safety, also so that nobody's drilling holes in our concrete, that sort of thing. We talked about signage. Huh?
Red line. Safety, they went down too.
Yeah, I did. Anyway, so I think that's it. So we'll kind of open it up to questions if anybody has any questions at this point.
Question, a vendor coming in, what is the charge per stall?
It's if you want one single stall, it is $90. And if you want a double, it's $150. And of course, if you want, we have a vendor down here on the end that's got 4. So we have anywhere from 1 stall vendors to 4 stall people. And then over here on Wilson Avenue, we have a gentleman that wants the whole block. So
the money goes to the chamber in the city?
the money goes, this is a fundraiser for the chamber. Well, I say that lightly. We have a lot of expenses, so the money from the vendors actually go to offset our expenses for this event.
We contribute some though too, correct? The city?
Well, the city gives us a stipend every year, but it's not directly for Junk Fest. And this last year, our board decided to not apply for hotel motel grant funding to see if we can get this event to stand on its own this year. We're working really hard to meet expenses, so.
Thank you.
Is that for the whole weekend, that charge for the whole weekend, or is that per?
One of the rules that we did have, because we ran into this last year, is that as a vendor, you need to stay for the entire weekend. We only have one vendor, and we have put this lady like way on the end so she can sneak out. She's she really wants to be here, but she needs to not be here on Sunday for religious purposes. So we're going to try to honor that. But you know, just because it rains for an hour on Saturday is not an excuse to close and go home. This is a juried show.
What's the penalty if they leave?
They won't be asked to come back next year. It's a juried show, and we took a lot of the rules and the things that we had from, like I said, a committee of our vendors, and we took some information from a couple of very successful shows, and are kind of emulating them.
As a vendor that does a lot of these types of shows, this is my most expensive show that I do every year, but it's well worth it. It's also my best sales show. I track my in-store sales separately from my outside sales, just so I know where I'm at for the year. I do Geneva Market. That'll be my first show in May. It's a little bit of a smaller venue, and it's outside on grass, and that one I pay $60 for double floor. But I think the benefit as a vendor is there, and that's why you see repeat vendors coming back year after year, is because it is an excellent show. The Chamber does a very good job promoting it. I know that we've kind of hogged up this whole end where we've talked a little bit about farmers market, and I want farmers market so desperately to be downtown with us for the event. I think that we have a lot of good options or compromises available to us. We could look at the north end of 2nd Street, which would not be too far, or Des Moines Street, just at the north of 2nd, or if we had to move this around, it's an option. I just think that we all need to find a way to compromise so that everybody has the opportunity to be included. We have really tried to encourage our downtown storefronts to find ways to participate in the show. I visited with several store owners and asked them, would you guys like to take a space outside your store? I paid for the space outside my store. That's not a freebie just because I'm a chamber member. We've asked them to set up a booth outside their store. We've told folks, set your specials outside. If you have 3,000 people in front of your store this weekend, put a big sign in the window. Tell them what you're doing for a special for your folks that are coming to town. We want to find ways for Gem Fest to bring customers back to us, not just Memorial Day weekend, but all year long. We get visitors that come from all over the state of Iowa and from out of state for this event, and it pays off for us in the long term because they come back and spend a day with us later in the year. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Linda, did Adam say that he can get you enough power in that area?
Last time I talked to him this afternoon on the phone, and Ryan was out sick today, and he was going to visit with Ryan, and and I talked to Daniel as well. Maybe we can get together in the next few days.
Yeah, I think we need to get together because I think you're going to have some issues with that block and with electrical needs, and I don't know if I heard you correctly. You said that Adam suggested you go in that block.
Yeah, Adam and Ryan, when I was working with them in January.
I don't think they categorize it the same way, but part of the reason why last year the vendors were spread out on 2nd Street was because of their power needs, and so you're going to have a couple of vendors on Des Moines Street that are probably going to be flipped around and moved around depending on what their power needs. So once we kind of narrow down what those vendors are going to require for outlets and amperage, then we can kind of see. But
yeah, I mean these are not set in stone. We haven't told the gridiron you are in space N, and that's written in stone. But when I visited with Adam and Ryan, as I think the first time I met them in January, like the end of January, I said to them, "Here's our idea. What do you suggest?" And like I said, we did a little bit of a walkabout, and they started looking. And to be quite honest, they were talking over my head because I don't know anything about electrical. Right. I just know I can plug things in at home. So I don't know how to get it there. But I was just going on their suggestion in January, and then when I presented their findings or what they told me in January to the committee and having people set up, that's kind of where we ran with it. And I told you that
you're going to have a couple pedestals that are going to be at the alley, and so you're going to end up having drop cords or extension cords that have to be run from one end of the alley clear to the other end of the block, which may not be that big of a deal other than possibly a trip hazard if they're not secured down. Yeah. But other than that, I think we need to figure out how many specific outlets and amperage you're going to need. Because for instance, gridiron you said needed 7, and so we may have we have a total of 8 on a temporary fixture. So if you take up 7 already, I don't know where your other vendors are going to plug into. So we can set up a time later this week or next week and figure out those details to see if that's going to work.
Well, yeah, that's great. And like I said, when you and I talked this afternoon, and as soon as I got off the phone with you, I said, Leah, we need to start calling those vendors, and you gave me another term to ask them because I don't 110, 220, how many outlets and the wattage. No, amps. Amperage.
You got the amps on Friday, but you didn't get all the information for all the vendors. So
yeah. So we're working on getting those. Unfortunately, some of those vendors have day jobs, and the information is a little slow going. So we're gonna get those to you as soon as possible. So
do any of the trucks?
We can work something out.
Do any of the trucks have food trucks have their own power on them?
Yeah, there is one vendor that mentioned that they have a generator, but they're going to need to plug it in, to recycle because all of them have refrigerated. Like Hy-Vee, I think they said.
If they're there for 3 days, they're not necessarily.
Yeah, they're going to have to plug in somehow. So to get that. And like I said, I would love to see this event grow. If we have a standalone event, one of the things that we've been talking about for a long time, we as in everybody in town, has been talking about knocking down silos. And I think that term, I wasn't even at that meeting, but I think it would be great someday to have maybe the fireworks, whatever weekend it is or whatever it is, to have Junk Fest and fireworks and Arts Are Alive and maybe Lazy Learning doing, that block party concept like we had and the farmers market and all of these organizations, like I said, Southfield maybe having their car show that weekend. I think something like that, and it does not have to be sitting downtown. Maybe Arts Are Alive is gonna do something and they're gonna do it in their sculpture park at Twin Parks. And maybe the swimming pool is gonna be open for free swimming that weekend. I mean, this event could be huge. We haven't had a Webster City festival for a while, since probably Raspberry Days, huh? Yeah. Stay at home 4th of July, yeah. So, I mean, it's, I get it, there's a lot of people that go away for Memorial Day weekend, and that's a struggle that we have because of volunteerism. A lot of people go away for the weekend, and so, here's my plea to people, if you have a couple hours on that weekend that you can help us, even if it's sitting at the chamber booth handing out maps and saying, welcome to our community, do you have any questions? And hey, don't forget to, shop this store and go eat at whatever restaurant it might be. So, you know, and check out the pool and check out the sculpture garden and make sure you're getting, you know, your produce at the, whatever it might be.
It's a neat concept for us to remember that Memorial Day weekend, although a lot of us like to go to the lake or to go away, we are someone else's vacation destination now. And for us to recognize that, that's kind of an exciting thought process.
So I'd love to, you know, I'm not against working together. I think that's great. I think we just need to find something that works best for us. And I think for us right now, it's whatever's going to work best for us for electrical. You know, and whatever that answer is, we'll make it work. We started on this concept and this plan because that's kind of what I was told in January we could do.
So if we say that it can stay all where it is, as you have it, and farmers market was still going to be there, we would either, what about if we either move the garbage bin and the portaloos,
those can go anywhere,
and put them into, say, the Daily Freeman Journal's parking lot. Because it brings the toilets closer to your food area, it puts it behind it, but it's
gets
closer.
it out of the way. Yeah, we can put those anywhere. We could probably
would that
put
be,
them.
because it puts you on the same street, Brian, it just puts you on the other side of the intersection.
My biggest problem is, the whole goal of this is to get a farmer's market established in the same spot over and over and over again.
Well, that puts it
So,
as close as you
let's
can
just
get.
say we were in there 4 years, 5 years in that spot. Would Junk Fest be kicking those vendors out for their weekend? Because that's where we're starting this now.
Well,
right? Am I wrong? If we don't go there let's say I say, you know, whatever you guys want to do.
With that logic,
Can I
Junk
finish?
Fest was there last year.
Then it may,
Right.
then
So that's what I'm
maybe
saying.
our thoughts then
When can
could
we
be,
establish?
but then it maybe our thoughts could be then that it means that farmers market has to be on the north side all the time.
Yeah.
Because if you know, I understand the food vending part of it does work. You got to admit it. It does make sense.
no, it doesn't.
Because of power?
But because that's where the food, because that's where Morning Glory is, because that's, you know, that's where they're putting their food stuff. So if they want to concentrate all the food in one place, then I mean, otherwise you put it on both sides, and then farmers markets mixed in amongst it all, which sort of.
If farmers market gets mixed in amongst it all, I don't know what farmers market pays, but the vendors that paid $150 for a double or $90 for a single might be highly offended.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
They can come every Saturday if they want.
That would be awesome.
If you could bring 3,000 to 5,000 people to Webster City every Saturday, I guarantee you I'd set up.
Well,
I just
and
don't
one
think it's
of the
right to
things.
kick the 20 vendors to the curb.
I'm not
In this
suggesting at
situation.
all that we kick them to the curb. I'm asking that we can find a happy compromise for one weekend a year. This is a
Yeah.
huge event.
And what about like, or like you're saying, move the porta potties to the Daily Freeman Journal's parking lot? What about the farmers market in that parking lot? Because that way it's not technically taking up a road space or stall. And again, you're 10 feet from the spot you're requesting moving forward.
When I first heard about this, my initial thoughts were those three places. Two of them you've already suggested. One was north, and like I said, we can move our porta pots wherever. If we needed extra vendor space, that's what we would do. We would move them out. The other option is Availabank has been so good to us. They're not open on Saturdays. They're only their drive-through, right? Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's a nice big area here, and then there's also, you know, the Daily Freeman Journal. The only thing is they think they have an ink truck that comes in.
No,
Saturday.
it's fine.
Okay.
I already spoke to them today, so they said it's fine.
Okay, so there's some good, you know, bigger spaces, and I completely understand Brian's logic behind not having anything in the park. That's one of the reasons that I think we're keeping our food court out on the street and not really having vendors in there, because it is hard to walk. You know, if you have your farmer's market on the street versus on the, like a gravel parking lot or whatever, it becomes accessible. It becomes stroller accessible. It becomes my little old mother who has a cane can come to it. You know, so I completely agree with Brian that you know, your street venue is probably a really good idea. And if we can figure out a way that we can still have the electric we need and work together with farmers market, I think that would be a win-win situation for everybody. And like I said, I'd love to have them as a part of it. but yet we have to have a little bit of a separation. Because again, like Denise said, we're asking people to pay for $150 for 2 parking spots. And so, you know, and with them, I'm sure you guys are charging something. I don't know what it is, I don't care. But, you know, they need their income, we need our income, and we need a little bit of separation. Plus, I'll tell you what, I don't want to organize one more thing that weekend. So.
What are you gonna do if you get 4 more food trucks? Where will they go?
We're probably gonna have to say we're full. I mean, like I said, I think there may be one either on this end, down here, one that may be available. We actually have the food trucks blocking available, driveway, that's the word I was looking for. So, you know, we're making sure that nobody is driving through the alleys and stuff like that. So we're actually blocking driveways. We're going to propose to Vale Bank that we block this driveway so that their drive-through people don't come in and enter our, and so because of that, we're putting a food truck or a vendor right in front of that. So at some point, from your mouth to God's ears, that we have to start turning people away.
Can I ask you this? What do the vendors feel, the farmer market vendors, feel about waiting a week to use that space?
I'll have to ask them. I have the same issue she does. And email's the only way I contact them, and it's slow. I know we just had a meeting last week, and there's excitement to be in a permanent location. So the very first weekend going to a different location, I'm guessing isn't going to be well received. I
would think that the compensation for that's there.
Because traffic.
I mean, in a sense.
The traffic's going to be.
You had said to me earlier that if we were established there, you would have worked around us.
Right, because I don't feel that it would have been fair for me to come in and say, hey, we have an event and we want your spot.
I guess what I'm asking is if I just say, we'll go wherever you want this year, next year will you work around us so we don't have to move when you guys move to town?
I'm not sure what the question is. I
just
feel like this is
a year from now, Memorial Day.
Yeah, I feel like this. I mean, we were established last year, and this is what we're not going to move our venue as far as I'm concerned, because one thing that it's in town. It moved from the park just because it didn't work and because of the rain and all that kind of stuff. What we did find, one of the huge bonuses, that it did work downtown. And where we have it located from west to east encompasses most of our viable downtown businesses. And that goes clear down to even our newest chamber member, the Legion, is going to have, a pancake breakfast or something in their thing. So we're trying to encompass.
Did I see beer garden? That was written on that.
Your basement.
So we're trying to encompass as many of our businesses as we can to make sure that we include things like, get down as far as 2nd Street Emporium and maybe Chong Garden, and we'd love to get clear down to Lomitas and then go around the corner, because those guys, Brian Gilbert, said they had a lot of success over there, but it's just a matter of we gotta get our, we have to get more vendors to get that far.
I think a good concession too to, not have that permanent space you and your vendors are seeking is you literally, your first weekend is going to start with a bang. You're going to be right next to all of that.
We did not plan that way.
No, I'm just saying that, I'm just saying as a concession, the first weekend of Farmers Market is literally going to have probably the most traffic for the year, even though it's going to be offset by 10 to 50 feet from the permanent spot.
More doing there.
So the question, I guess, is then, if the electrical is good for you to have it where it is, to have the food court where it is, and you don't need to be on the north side, then do you want to have farmers market on the north side or in the parking lot? That's really what it comes down to.
Right. The compromise you're proposing is no compromise, we move. That's what it goes.
Well, you haven't established that location yet.
Okay. I'm okay with either. I'll just see what the vendors as a whole say.
So I would think, for the amount of traffic you're going to get, it pays off to move just for the one day a year, I think. it's not, you know, at least you're setting up every week. So it's not like it's, you know, it's not like you're building some permanent structure that we have to close down or whatever. So I guess really that's what it comes
So
down to.
the consensus is I'm not gonna vote, but what we're talking about doing is we can be there every Saturday except for one other day till the end of time.
Yeah. And then, you know, and I guess as far as Linda's goes, we'll have to do, you know, we can say we're gonna close it, you know. I don't see anything wrong with whatever she's got, we just might have to tweak that, depending on the power.
Can I ask this, if power's an issue, can we fill those spots that will be blank because you'll have to relocate to where the power is?
Well, the only thing would be, I think, you know, she made a good point about the, you know, mixing you amongst them. If you keep you in one group is better than
John, I'm more concerned about the foot traffic, because if this is a food court, excuse me, that we're gonna have, you know, families walking up and down here, and if we have, vendors that are trying to get out of, let's say, over here and go down the alleys, I'm more concerned about the vehicular safety than you know, and yes, it is a concern for me to say.
Why would there be a vehicle going from there going down?
Because they have to get out of there. Farmers market's only 3
Even when
hours.
they're setting up Saturday morning.
No, when they're leaving. Yeah, because they'll get there way before, yeah. But when they leave, that's about, when they're gonna be leaving is about the lunch hour for us.
Well, that's why I would have proposed that they be, you know, in one group either. If there's not enough electric there, then maybe, and you have to be on the north side, then maybe they need to be on the south end of the alley.
Like I said, you know, everything is kind of gonna be dependent on what we could get for electrical. And the other thing is, you know, I don't know what you have for electrical on the north end, but I just, you know, I don't want the city.
That's what Harvey was last year, so that's.
There's a pole
we had
in the green space next to me.
I just don't want the city to have to go to a huge expense for this, you know, either, because, you know, you guys have been great supporters of the chamber and Jug Fest, and we're really seriously trying to work out some bugs. There were some bugs, you know, every year. I think every year we can find something that we can improve. And I spent a great deal of time at Jug Fest last year, talking to vendors, talking to citizens, people who live here, and people from outside of the country, outside of the town. What do you see? What can be better? One of the vendor committee people is from Story City and goes, you know, to shows a lot like Denise, and so that's where we brought together a lot of the experience to say this is what we need to do, and we shouldn't do this next year. So, and then, like I said, I've been polling people like the police department and you know, what do you guys need for us to do? Anybody have any other questions? Thank you for your help. Thank you for your consideration. We'd love to work with you. We'd love to see an addition. And if you ever have any questions, please give me a call. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good presentation. I guess we go back to motion to number 2, do we? So, and it would appear that I would think that we want to allow it to go all year round except for that particular weekend, so to be in the same spot every weekend is that what we were thinking?
Leave the motion the same except
not starting at May 26th. So we just hold out the one jump this weekend and say in case, so that way next year we're not coming across this problem. So the next year would be, if this all works and it's in the same place, then it would be in a different place every, you know, whether you're going to be in the parking lot every year or whether you want to be on the north side. But realise, I guess you're both going to grow, so maybe, that keeping that in mind, maybe the farmers may well end up in the parking lot on the north end of the town, I don't know. So you'll have to come back to us and let us know, I suppose, where you would like to be.
Sure.
Except that we can pass it to be every other weekend of the year. But I realise it's not exactly what you want. Probably the closest we're going to get to. I do think.
And again, I think you're taking this as like some hostility towards the the farmer's market, please don't think
Not
that.
hostility, I just feel it's unfair. I get your feelings, I get them all. I just think it's wrong to kick 20 local citizens out of a spot once a year. When they could add to it, and like she said, she wants to grow off down the road, we'll help. We'll fill a little spot, you can grow off down the road. I think we could all work together rather than us have us be off the street. But nobody seems to be able to accommodate that, so.
Well, you can be on the north, you'll be on the street, the north side of that intersection, or you can be in the parking lot.
And, you know, they could always buy a vendor stall if they wanted to, you know, I mean, like SOS themselves are purchasing a vendor stall, so.
Right,
they
we
still,
could pay 1 week a year, that'd be.
I'm just saying, like, if they wanted to be, I mean, again, I guess my example is, an established business on Main Street is buying a vendor stall to participate, a double stall. So, I guess I'm saying is, yes, it seems odd, but it's an event, we close the streets down for this, just like if Ragbri went through, we'd block out parking for the beer garden or something, and I'm sure, you know, establishments got frustrated with that too. And again, I mean no disrespect to the farmer's market, it's a valuable resource we have in this community. Junk Fest is as well.
Okay, so someone want to make a motion? We'll just,
I move to approve the request with the change of date starting a week later, so whatever that'd be.
So you're gonna say beginning the weekend after Memorial Day? Or, because that's gonna change every year.
But this is,
The date is gonna change every
Then
year.
I'd do that, I'd move to approve that street closing for the farmer's market the weekend after Memorial Day.
Second.
okay. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And Brian's
Brian is
abstaining,
abstaining.
so, yeah.
Second.
And then we need a motion on request for street and parking lot closings in connection with the 2018 Junk Fest event.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Okay, second.
You get that?
McKinney second?
Yep.
Correct?
And everyone was aye.
Everybody voted yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4 on the agenda is a resolution authorising the Hamilton County Animal Advocates Association to implement a trap neuter return TNR program in the city of Webster City.
Sure, as you guys recall, we amended the animal ordinance to allow for a TNR program, but without removing the feeding of wild and feral cats or animals. Hamilton County Advocates had submitted a kind of proposal in the form of a letter of what they planned or intend to do as part of it. Be able to trap cats, spay, neuter. Also allow them the opportunity to adopt the cats out if deemed adoptable. And then submit a written report summarizing the number of cats they've had participate or go through the program to the city annually. So if you have any specific questions, Monica can answer for you, or any specific questions Zach and I can address regarding their proposal.
Billy, I think we've gone over it well enough. Should we call for a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
You waited around for that.
But it was interesting.
Item 5 is an appointment of one member of the Civil Service Commission for a 4-year term beginning of April 2nd, 2018 and ending on April 4th of 2022. We have a nomination.
Hold on, I'm trying to find my spot here.
Trish Barnabas.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I'll nominate. Sorry, I was trying to find my spot. I'll nominate Trish Barnabas.
I'll second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 6 is a resolution setting a time and place for a public hearing on proposed sale of city-owned property located in Lawn Hill Addition, Webster City, Iowa, at 601 Woolsey Avenue for April 16 at 5:35 p.m.
this resolution and the one subsequent to that, 601 Woolsey Avenue and 119 Prospect Streets are two residential properties that the city have gone after under our nuisance and unsafe building ordinance. The 601 Woolsey, the city actually acquired some years ago and entered into an agreement with a gentleman a year or two ago, if I'm not mistaken, who failed to follow through on his abating the nuisance issues of the property and renovating the property per the agreement, so it reverted back to the city last year, if I'm not mistaken. 119 Prospect Street, the city recently acquired that. I think Zach finished up the legal process, I think just towards the end of February. We kind of went out and solicited interest and bids from people who were interested in rehabbing, with the caveat that they had to be able to abate the issues as well as rehab the properties. This one turned the properties back to residential use and be able to put them back on our residential homes or properties of available homes. So it's a good way to kind of deal with some of our nuisance and unsafe properties that have been neglected or abandoned in the past. We have a couple others that we're working on, as well as the Shady Oaks Motel, 1203 2nd Street, that we're working on dealing from a nuisance perspective. But these two properties are before you to set a public hearing at the next council meeting, and then enter an approval of the agreements to sell the properties to the potential buyers with the condition they abate the issues and renovate the home into livable condition.
Everybody?
We're just setting a date and time, right?
Yeah, we're just setting a date and time for both hearings. So.
I'll second. Is that for both or just
No,
six?
just
one.
I'll second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 7 is a resolution setting a time and place for a public hearing on the proposed sale of city-owned property located in Jones and Smith's Addition, Webster City, Iowa, at 119 Prospect Street for April 16 at 5:40 p.m.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 8 is a resolution of support and commitment of funds for Ridge Development Company, LLC of Marion, Iowa.
This request, and looking at the map, you have the assessor's parcel map, and so this is in regards to the area east of the hospital, Strucken Addition. This subdivision was built many years ago with several lots not having built out. Brian Ridge is a developer who is interested in acquiring multiple lots in this area and developing them into single-family residential units. This is kind of a bit of a twofold plan on his part. One is to apply for the workforce tax credits with the state. That would require both the resolutions before you for submitting the application with the support from the city. It also has $1,000 per housing unit tag to it. That's essentially a contribution or an incentive from the city for him to be able to do that if he were to receive and be eligible for those workforce tax credits. The other part of it that he's requesting is whether or not the council or the city is interested in doing a development agreement where he could leverage or take advantage of the remaining balance of tax increment financing that was originally imposed on the district to help fund the infrastructure improvements out there. That infrastructure, the state allows and recognizes TIF or development agreements that use TIF or other sorts of financial incentives, and recognize that as the city's form of the $1,000 matching funds under the workforce housing tax credits. Otherwise, the cities would have to look at the development agreements and the requirements for the workforce housing tax credit as two separate things, where you have the TIF and the balance that would be recouped there, and the $1,000 per unit that would be recouped under the workforce housing tax credit. But I think under this scenario, we would consider the development agreements one and the same with the requirements of the workforce tax credits permitted by the state.
So in English, about worst case scenario.
In English, he wants to build houses.
Right. He wants to build 9 houses.
We would do one agreement that would cover us under the workforce housing tax credit, as well as the TIF.
No, but worst case scenario, and we talked to your office a bit earlier, because I was trying to, sift through all this weekend. Worst case scenario, we have $9,000 invested in a developer possibly building 9 homes, right?
Correct.
I do have a concern about investing money in property. We certainly got skinned a couple of years ago on those executive mansions that the city built on that. I had talked to another gentleman involved with real estate, and instead of the money forward, maybe on the fees for inspection, you know, waive those in lieu of cash. You know, I don't know what it costs for an inspection on a new house. I mean, I have no idea. But I guess I'm just not in favor of putting more taxpayer money up front. But, you know, I mean, the fees, you know, we got the inspectors. Then they could waive that, then that means the property's already been built and inspectors will look at it. I mean, that's my feeling.
Well,
That was talking to people.
yeah, I think council can certainly look at waiving fees if you really wanted to. Part of the workforce housing tax credit is you're not giving him the incentive unless he actually builds a home. So you're kind of back in that scenario that he has to build that home in order to get that incentive. So I mean, you're not really kind of giving up anything if you choose to offer $1,000 for the workforce housing tax credit, or whether you want to waive the permitting fees, with perhaps that the waiving of permitting fees could be more in excess of $1,000.
No, I mean up to $1,000.
Up to, so you would cap it at that, and that's certainly an option, and it might fall within the I guess the rules of the program. And the city recently just approved another workforce housing tax credit letter of support or resolution of support when we did that the subdivision or the housing project that wants to come in just directly adjacent to the hospital and on that vacant ground. So I mean, it's just really kind of an option which way you want to go. It's up to you guys how you want to kind of proceed with that.
But we'd have to have something there, or he wouldn't qualify for the workforce.
Yeah, in order to submit for the application, he needs that resolution of support, and the details in terms of whether it's cash or cash value worked out through the development agreements, that's back through the TIF, that's could be worked out at a later date. The caveat with the other part of it too is the unknown with what's going to happen with tax increment financing with the state, and there's been several bills that have kind of targeted TIF and it would impact the city's ability to leverage TIF for development purposes, whether it be residential, commercial, or industrial. You know, if you have any changes of that, it would essentially, you know, not make it a resource or a tool that cities can leverage to be able to do. And so, you know, I would probably encourage, if council wants to move forward with the development agreement so that he can take advantage and leverage the TIF that's remaining, which is about $91,000 for that district, we would probably have to get something worked out quickly so that we can make sure we iron out the details before any changes to the law impact that ability.
Has he given any details on what ballpark range cost is for an affordable home?
He has, I believe, last I knew, they were roughly, you know, beginning at 170, 180 and north thereof.
Yeah, because that's relative, right? It's
right
to your budget.
It is.
And I believe he has said he hasn't stipulated whether he would do all 9 housing units in that subdivision, or he's actually considered or thought of maybe doing a combination there and a combination in either Brewer Creek 5 or 6. So he hasn't. I think part of the driving factor for him would probably boil down to the cost of those lots that he can acquire them for.
Mm-hmm. He is also saying 9 houses in 4 years, so he has set a time frame.
Right. And he's actually, last I knew, he is building his own personal home in one of those lots. So I don't think that's factored into the 9 he's thinking of planning, but he certainly is looking to invest in that area.
I move to approve.
This is what we want.
No, I say approve the resolution and move in the direction of a development agreement, or just one or the other? Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I guess I'm still want to know about the income and, kind. I mean, that's the thing I have. Still get that answer. Not that I'm not for it, but I just wanted to at least.
Okay, what have we got, 9? Resolution approving the fire department work agreement for the 2018-19 and approving the execution of the same by the city manager. Makes sense.
So the proposal with the local professional firefighters, local 1940 work agreement for the upcoming fiscal year 2018-19 is just an increase in 3% in wages effective July 1, 2018. The other condition is noted in the memo. Part of it is also to move in the direction of establishing a formal contract as we have currently with the police collective bargaining unit. With the fire union, it's rather unique, and we're one of the, I think our labor attorney last alluded to, we're probably one of less than 3% or fewer than that in the entire state where we still function under this format where the collective bargaining work agreements are done by resolution year over year, and so we essentially are bound by resolutions spanning from 1976, I believe, in my notes, clear to today, roughly many odd pages, and there's some language that it would probably be just condensed into a single document to cover all of the work terms and wages thereof. So the goal would be to move forward in that direction and have something finalized by the end of the year, if possible.
Looks good.
Took a long time to get to this.
Move to approve. The questions on it are fairly messy.
Right.
Was it
Well, we
fairly
always
messy
had a
deal,
closed
but-
session
Yeah.
with Beth, so I mean, I think we had our questions
Did
answered.
Jim move?
Yep.
I'll second.
Yeah.
So all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 10 on the resolution authorising enter into an amendment of number 2 to the on-call bridge inspection and underground utility distribution systems agreement with WHKS and Co. of Ames, Iowa for engineering services in connection with Mary Ann Water Main Loop and Ingraham Water Main Replacement Project.
So these two, let me bring up the map to kind of give you a better idea.
We can bring Ken up, make him talk.
Yeah, he looks kind of bored back there.
Yeah, he should. You can do it.
What the Mary Ann Water Main Loop is to connect. Currently, there is water main loop that comes around in front of Custom Meats, comes around the north side of Mary Ann's, comes between, if you look on the left side of Mary Ann's, there's a building there. Water main comes between that building and the Mary Ann's main building. Then it comes south and it comes actually on the south side of Mary Ann's, and actually then comes back, and we've had problems with that water main on the south side of Mary Ann's, right in there. What we want to do is actually create a loop and make it come up this private drive. Make it come up this private drive and go under the railroad and make the connection here. So you do have a loop that goes all the way around. Right now, if we have a break there, then that means everything that is Custom Meats and Mary Ann's have got issues. So we want to correct that. The other part to this is it's not a replacement, it's a repair. If you come off of High Street, right here, and you come east, there's a water main that comes this direction, and it comes up and connects onto where it would be a part of that water loop. There's a section that's in here that is exposed by erosion. There are some ditches that come, waterway ditches that come through there, and it's exposed. And what we're proposing to do because of its location, is directional bore it, similar to what we were doing on Beach Street. And trying to hold down the price by doing that. That's what this is. And what this is allowing us to, the engineer to do the work for us, to do the engineering.
What is the diameter of the line you put it in there?
12 inch.
12 inch. They can bore 12 inch?
Right. That's what's on Beach, that's what it is on Beach Street, is 12 inch.
That's why the big savings on that Beach Street, because we're boring it, we're not digging it. Okay, might as well wait till the next one. Okay, call for a motion.
So moved.
Second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item 11 is a resolution authorising and to enter an amendment number 3 to the Encore Bridge Inspection and Underground Utility Distribution Systems agreement with WHKS and Co. of Ames, Iowa for engineering services in connection with the Dubuque Street Bridge Repair Project.
What this entails with the Dubuque Street Bridge is the aprons on each end of the bridge need to be redone. There's also where the bridge girders sit on, for lack of a better term, the bridge columns or piers, in between where the actual bearing is taking place, it's deteriorating, the concrete is deteriorating, and so before it gets to the point where it's going to cause a problem with the beams that go across, we want to address that. So this would allow that engineer to design, get what it needs to happen, and we get that corrected.
Would that just be, shoring up, or would that actually be doing some replacement?
We might have to do a little bit of replacement. I don't think that the actual piers per se, we aren't going to be messing with those, but it's the actual top of the pier where the beam, that beam actually sits on it. It actually looks like this, and between each of those beams that run parallel with the street, the concrete is deteriorating in between them, and that's what we're concerned about. We don't want it to get under that beam, because once it gets under that beam, now we got problems.
A lot of that's caused by the salt from the winter, there probably, isn't it? Or maybe vibration too, on that type of construction.
Salt.
Yeah, there's no way they can put a cap, I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying?
Well, we're gonna try and do some painting on it, use some Tenemic paint.
Yeah, no, okay, well, thank you. That's what I was thinking, because that's a pretty common problem, especially in the northern climates. When the spring does get here, and everything melts. We're still waiting on that, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 12 is a motion on request from the street supervisor to approve specifications and seek bids for a dump truck with a snow plough and sander for the street department.
Well, the plow might be needed tomorrow, depending on how much snow we get, but this is replacing our 1995 International truck. We have budgeted $155,000 for the truck, blade, and sander. This is the one unit that, if you recall, at the last big snowstorm gave us trouble and was down for a period of time during that morning as we were trying to keep up with the snow. This is the one that would have to be replaced. But the motion would be, or the memo states, if the bids come under budget, to allow the street department to move forward with purchasing that. You guys are comfortable with that?
Is this a good time, the best time of year to buy? You don't want to buy motorcycles in the spring. You don't want to buy plows.
This would be the best time.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's the end of winter, isn't it? So it should be fine.
So we should get the best pricing.
Hopefully.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 13 is a discussion on proposal to enter into a 2018 CTS Combined Transmission System Improvements Agreement which would be between members of the North Iowa Municipal Electrical Cooperative Association, NIMECA, and the Transmission Ownership.
At the last meeting, you guys heard a presentation from Greg Fritz, the CEO of NIMECA, which is the North Iowa Municipal Electric Operative Association, I believe is the exact acronym. They're doing a transmission project, and whereas Webster City and I believe Algona are rather unique in terms of the transmission setup with the rest of the members, where we're excluded from that. This project opened an opportunity, and they invited us if we wanted to participate. Essentially, they would be financing the transmission project, at which point, once it's paid off, the city would potentially receive a dividend from the transmission costs that are recouped under the SPP market. If you have any specific questions, just wanted to bring this back to see if there's any interest from the council to move forward with that, at which point we would kind of bring it back at the next meeting for execution of any documents, or if you have any other specific questions regarding the project.
Has NIMECA filled you in the last couple of weeks on any other communities they've spoken with, or I guess Algona is the only one that has the option? Has he met with Algona, and have they given any feedback yet?
Last I spoke with him, I did not ask him if he had met with them. I understand he was going to, and so I can certainly find out.
And what would be our upfront investment if we did the full, whatever it was, 19% or something?
If you want to do that 20% or something, I believe it was roughly just under 20%. I believe was about a $500,000. Now that would be only conditioned upon if they were to not be able to meet their obligation to pay that notes or pay that loan that they would be taking out to finance the transmission project, and the city would be responsible for a proportional share for that year, which the rough estimates on the amortization schedule that I saw would put us roughly about $50,000 for that fiscal year. If they have greater issues related to that, then I think NIMECA has a lot more greater issues than just that project alone.
Sure.
Now, my concern is, when I heard his proposal last time, what is the advantage to Webster City? Because we already have a commitment with Corn Belt. And so basically they're asking us to buy in and share somebody else's potential cost. You know, if it goes right, yeah, that's fine, but I mean, I guess it's kind of, you know, behind the paper poke, you know, what are we gonna get? I mean, we could get skinned on that, or we may come out ahead. I don't see any advantage to Webster City to get involved in that, because we already are involved with Corn Belt. We've got a commitment with them. So why do we need two commitments to help the other 9 cities, if that's what the number is? And I guess I'd kind of like to know what Algona's saying too. I just don't see the advantage to Webster City.
Didn't he tell us that Algona's already a yes on it?
Yeah, that's my memory of it. That Algona was on
They
board.
already said Algona was a yes on it.
Well, I don't remember that.
But
and the bigger picture of the whole thing is that it gives us a better position if one day we decide we wanted to move away from what we're tied to. That was.
You mean on the Corn Belt?
Yeah.
Well, they've got a 40-year contract on that now, so I mean.
If that's, and one day one would like to think that it might look different. Maybe they'll be looking differently one day, but it might be worth buying it.
Yeah, we got involved in a 40-year contract.
And again, to reiterate kind of what you're touching on, we're really just backing the loan. We're not fronting the money. We have an obligation to pay our share of the payments if they default, or if they do not, or they can't make their payments. Yeah. And on the back end, we'll be receiving a dividend after maybe nothing for the first few years, but after that loan's paid off, it could be several $100,000 a year, right? That's the upside.
Yeah.
To the city of Webster City?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct.
Well, if we have the money, why don't we invest it and make the money up front into a CD or a bond ourselves for the city?
We're not gonna make any investment, we're just backing.
We're just backing.
I know, but I mean, you're talking about dividends. I mean, I can't see tying our money up for somebody else. I mean,
we're not tying any of our money up.
No, but we're guaranteeing if their loan doesn't work right.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I mean, it just doesn't.
And we have other loans like that with some of these electric companies already, don't we? Who's our other one we've got? Is that with Cornbelt?
Yeah, I don't know that we have any existing loans, but part of our agreements was in order for them to maintain the limited transmission, and more importantly, our ownership share of the power plant that we have 2.46 ownership share in. If any improvements need to be financed, we've agreed that we would execute the loans or the bonds because we may be able to obtain a lower municipal bond rate versus what they would. We haven't had to execute a loan under those terms as far as I recall in the last several years, but that was part of the original arrangements with Cornbelt, as they would manage and be responsible for the ongoing maintenance when we would essentially lend ourselves to financing the projects if it's more lucrative for them to do so. In the long run, part of that reason for that is because obviously if we can secure better rates on a municipal bond market, ultimately it results in affects how much the rates on their end that would then be passed on to Webster City.
We're just discussing today.
Correct.
Like we don't need a motion. We don't need to.
I guess it's a problem for your motion if you want to move forward, because we would have to have documents back to you at the next meeting to execute in time.
Let me ask you this: you've had the conversations with NYMECA. What do you think our risk is? I mean, obviously, you're proposing that we move forward. It'd be your opinion to do that.
Yeah, I think thinking longer term and thinking of our contract with Cornbelt and obviously some of the frustrations that have had with Cornbelt and their larger power supplier based on electric. If we were thinking beyond 2054, which is when our Cornbelt contract is up, this could open up a different possibility of different avenues, whether it be NYMECA or a couple of other things that if we really wanted to. Now, I'm not saying that those avenues aren't there or wouldn't be there, but it's different when you have an owned transmission capacity and rights to that. And it makes it a little bit more feasible, a little more lucrative to be able to do so. Whether it be at that 20% or that 19.72% share that they propose or less, I think we've been committed, and we were one of the initial members of NYMECA when that was originally formed way back in the 1970s, and so we've obviously had a great relationship with them outside of the ups and downs we've had with Cornbelt, but being a transmission capacity owner is vastly different than being a power generation owner, and for better somewhat there's more ups to it than there is down. Now granted, the electric market has changed so much in the last 50-60 years, and so power generation definitely is going to change. You've seen that in the last 20-30 years with distributed generation, with solar and wind, but those are power generation. Those still need transmission capacity in order to get from where those solar arrays are at or those wind turbines are at and use the transmission capacity rights to be able to get from point A to point B.
This just could give us more flexibility in the future.
Potentially, yes. But strictly speaking, from this current, where we're at today, the primary advantage for us is primarily financial, and that in the next, whenever this loan is paid off in the next 5-10 years, the immediate future would be we then would get a return on investment on a dividend proportional to our investment. And NYMECA's okay if we don't want to do it. I mean, there's
and maybe semantics will come into play in this. Maybe it's not an investment; it's an obligation, right? Because again, we're not cutting a check to NYMECA, right?
No.
And instead, we're being listed as a creditor in a sense, and letting them take the loan out. But and you touched on it a little bit too. I mean, I'm not getting on my soapbox about power distribution and stuff like that in Iowa, but there are some risks for future power generation to be more distributed. be more local to the home, the business, the community, without large power distribution through lines. But again, that's kind of sort of science fiction at this point, but it's coming. But I still believe that large transmission lines are necessary 20, 30, 40 years into the future, in one way, shape, or form.
Tesla might not agree with you.
Right. I mean, that's why it's kind of science fiction-ish, but it's there. It's on the cusp.
They're starting the
Right.
process.
So you need a motion to approve?
Yes.
I'll move to approve.
We have a second?
And is this motion at the full percentage that Webster City's allowed? The max, is that the motion?
Yeah, I'm okay with the full percentage. But I can't remember if it was 19 or 20.
19.7.
I'll second, I guess, if we're gonna consider doing it. The difference between 10 and 20% is
Right.
gonna be a huge difference as it is. We just increase our revenue potential, or dividend, I guess is the better term.
Right.
Yeah, and again, this is just to move forward to our next meeting, so you still have that option over the next few weeks to
Change
continue to
that.
digest it. And if you have any specific questions that you'd like me to relay to NEMECO or ask Greg to come back to address those questions before you make a final decision at the next meeting and approve the documents, certainly can do that as well.
So
But we'll probably want to know for sure that, I'm pretty sure he said that Algona already said that they would, but we can double check that so we know next time.
So this motion and second is moving forward on the 19.72, I guess, commitment to NIMECA, but there's still another vote to finalize.
Yeah, to approve the actual agreement. We'll come back to you with those criteria.
Yeah, and if there's more information that it makes more sense to be 15 or less, or I'm open to that.
Or if like Algona's getting cold feet, or you know, something's happening, we'll just time to.
The reason I think Algona was in is because I thought to myself, could we buy Algona's portion, or back Algona's portion too, and I think they were committed.
No, they were.
Not that that's possible, but it's just something that popped in my head.
Okay, we'll roll call.
John Hawkins,
Yes.
Matt McKinney,
Yes.
Brian Miller,
Yes.
Jim Talbot,
No.
Logan Welch.
Yes.
Okay.
Section D.
Section D, reports and recommendations of officers, boards and commissions. Are there any city council committee reports?
The Youth Advisory Commission will meet April 15th, 7 p.m. at Fuller Hall. We're still working on the frolfing tournament. June 16th. Sorry, I had to check.
For us older people, frisbee golf.
Yeah. Frolfing is a new term to me as well. But yeah, Frisbee golf tournament, same weekend as Father's Day, so it'd be a cool family event on that Saturday before Father's Day.
They have the registration forms out yet?
They do. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. Actually, Brianna Luke, one of our Youth Advisory Commission members, made an online registration form that has like a waiver and the details and stuff. So I'll possibly, can I share that on the city Facebook page if I forwarded that to you, Daniel?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll see that I do that. So please check the city website or Facebook page.
Are there any other reports or recommendations? There's an update from city attorney.
Yeah, I like that it's up there. I can't really read it, but
No, maybe the people at home.
Get his header on there at
Okay.
least.
yeah, get my header on. Some advertising. No, big things coming up for you guys to be aware of. The Sahai second edition. That's the where the waste treatment plant is, or potentially going to end up someday. There's 60 acres out there. The plat has all been submitted. It's been approved by all the necessary clerks, or the recorder's office, the auditor's office, treasurer. All of them have approved it. We've received it back now. So we should be finalizing closing on the purchase of that property either this week still or next week at the latest. So we'll be purchasing that per your guys' purchase agreement that you were directing us to do. 119 Prospect, 601 Woolsey, we've talked about that in depth. Already tonight, you're going to have a public hearing on that at the next council meeting. And then as far as just an update on dilapidated, unsafe, or abandoned properties, we were successful again in March. We're receiving 4 additional judgments against property owners in town for not cleaning up their properties or for other issues going along with their properties. We have 2 cases set for trial, and, well, I take that back. We have 1 case set for trial next week. We had another one that was set for this week. It's now been continued. We haven't got a final date yet on a new continued one, and then we have 1 in June still. So we're filling up the calendar quick.
When do you assume that one that was delayed, I've been made aware of that as well. There's one we've been waiting for about 7 or 8 months or something for a court date, is that right?
Yeah, we filed in July of last year, yeah.
So have you heard when that may be scheduled?
We have a scheduling conference on the 9th, and we'll have it scheduled then again, so.
I'm sure you're already aware of this.
Is it likely to be put forward again after?
What's that?
Is it likely to be changed again after that then? Or
Hopefully not. Usually they don't like to continue it again more than once. They usually give them a 1 free pass, so I like to say. As with all of them though, I argue as much as I can, and you can ask the court system, I'm probably the biggest stickler about trying to get them in as soon as we can, just because they're just not necessary for the community to be sitting out there that long, so.
I appreciate that. I'm sure the neighbors to that property appreciate that. And they just wanted me to encourage you to do whatever you can.
As always.
But I'm sure you already know that, and I'm sure you are. So they were very disheartened when they heard that.
And us as well. We were close. We were a week away, so.
He was getting excited for the case.
I was prepared too. I had everything ready to go.
I was going to sit in. I planned on.
I was taking the day off.
Yeah,
I wanted to watch it.
I'll get you the new date. You guys can come and be entertained. So.
This may never happen.
Lastly, the other nuisance property that we dealt with last year and still working once we acquired it. There's a fire training burn for 1203 2nd Street for Saturday, weather permitting, and there's a slight chance that wind may pick up, so depending on what ends up happening, we may have to reschedule that. But that was another nuisance property that was on your radar, and they're part of the reason why the town hall meeting last April was so full.
Right. Are we going to make enough money off those 2 we're selling to pay for the Sahara edition?
I really don't.
I already know the answer to that. So.
And we may get snow tomorrow. We don't have a snow emergency, so we'll keep posted on Facebook of any inclement driving conditions.
You want to end on a high note?
Yes.
We're not going to get snow?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is adjourned.